The most dangerous animal in the ancient world wasn't a predator, it was a human baby. A cry in the dark was a signal that could attract cave hyenas or saber-toothed cats from a mile away, and a newborn human was uniquely defenseless. Most people assume early humans survived this period through simple parental love. The strong survived, the weak did not, and life moved on. This explanation is not wrong, but it is incomplete. It misses the central paradox of human development. The profound helplessness of our infants was not just a problem to be solved. It was the evolutionary pressure that forced us to become social, cooperative, and ultimately human. Let's start with the fundamental biological problem. Human babies are born too early. Not in the medical sense of prematurity, but in an evolutionary one. Our species' greatest asset is a large complex brain, which allows for language, planning, and culture. But this brain created an engineering crisis. A fully developed human-sized brain cannot pass through a human mother's birth canal, which was itself narrowed by the evolutionary shift to walking upright. Evolution's solution was a brutal compromise. Human babies are born with their brains only about 30% of their adult size. Compared to other primates who can cling to their mothers or walk within hours of birth, a human infant is essentially an external fetus. For years, it is completely dependent for food, warmth, and movement. This wasn't a design flaw, it was the price of intelligence. The reward was a brain that could continue to grow and learn from the world long after birth. But this biological trade-off was just the beginning. Someone had to pay the price of that long dependency. For most of human history, that was the entire group. This is the midpoint of the story, and here everything changes. We began by asking how babies survived. But the evidence suggests the question should be, what did the babies do to us? Anthropologists studying modern hunter-gatherer groups consistently observe that children are not raised by two parents in isolation. A system called alloparenting or communal childcare is the norm. Grandmothers, aunts, older siblings, and even unrelated adults feed, carry, and soothe infants. For a large mammal, this level of shared infant care is rare. For early humans, it was almost certainly essential for survival. This social network solved the immediate problem of keeping a helpless infant alive while its mother recovered or gathered food. But the effects were more profound. The grandmother hypothesis, proposed by anthropologist Kristen Hawkes, argues that postmenopausal women played a critical evolutionary role by helping to provision and care for their grandchildren. Their assistance may have been a deciding factor in whether an infant lived or died. In most other species, an infant's survival is tied almost exclusively to its mother. In humans, survival is tied to the network. But this shared investment did more than protect children. It forged the bonds of community itself. Every time an adult helped care for another's child, it reinforced trust, reciprocity, and obligation. This constant, high-stakes cooperation wove early humans together in a way that hunting or gathering alone could not. This social adaptation was critical, but it was built on a physical one. Let's go to the infant's body itself. A newborn's reflexes are an instruction manual for its own survival. A human baby has a palmar grasp reflex strong enough to support its own body weight, a relic from a primate past of clinging to a mother's fur. Its heart rate stabilizes and it stops crying when held against a moving body. Its body temperature regulates more effectively when held skin to skin. These are not learned behaviors. They are ancient neurological commands. They all communicate the same non-negotiable rule. Hold me, carry me, do not put me down. To be set down was to be abandoned, and to be abandoned was death. The infant's own biology demanded constant contact, and our ancestors clearly listened. This constant carrying would have been a major logistical challenge, but one our ancestors solved. The use of slings and wraps made from animal hides would have allowed parents and other caregivers to keep infants secure and warm, while keeping their hands free to work, gather food, or travel. This simple technology is what enabled a species with the world's most dependent infant to spread across every major landmass on the planet. The need to carry our young didn't hold us back, it made our global expansion possible. But the strongest evidence for this deep-seated culture of care comes from the bones of those who survived long past infancy. Archaeological evidence provides a clear picture of this cooperative framework. For a long time, the prevailing view of prehistoric life was one of brutal individualism. But the fossil record tells a different story. Researchers have found ancient remains of individuals who lived for years with debilitating injuries or chronic illnesses, conditions that would have made them completely dependent on others for food, water, and protection. One of the most studied examples is a Neanderthal from the Shanidar cave in modern-day Iraq. This individual lived to an old age, despite having a withered arm, fused leg joints, and probable deafness. He could not have survived alone. He was cared for by his group, for years. Think about what this means. The instinct to care for the vulnerable is not a recent invention of civilization. It is ancient. It predates agriculture, cities, and written laws. It may be the very foundation upon which those things were built. The evidence shifts our perspective entirely. The extreme dependency of human infants was not a weakness, it was a catalyst. It was the central organizing principle of early human society. The constant, demanding presence of a helpless baby forced our ancestors to develop deeper levels of cooperation than any other primate. That enforced proximity, generation after generation, forged the uniquely human capacity for empathy, shared intention, and complex social bonding. Here's where I leave you. Our species, defining intelligence, was purchased at the price of an infant, so helpless, it should never have survived a prehistoric world. That vulnerability was not a bug. It was the feature that programmed our social operating system. The cry of a baby in the night was an alarm that required a collective response, rewiring our ancestors' brains for communal responsibility. We did not build communities and then decide to care for the vulnerable. The absolute necessity of caring for the vulnerable is what built our communities in the first place. The verdict is that we didn't create civilization despite the burden of our children. We created it because of them.